Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We have a fantastic partnership here with myself, Charlene Thompson, and the delightful Elle Turner. And we're going to have a couple of episodes all around the sales ick. That's how people have been referring to it. So we'll be going into what the sales ick is if you haven't heard about it before. And then we're also going to be talking about how do we reframe it. So rather than me just keep talking, I'd like us all to welcome very much Elle Turner.
Thank you very much for having me, Charlene. I'm really looking forward to this. I think the sales ick is just such an important conversation because I just know how it feels and it's horrible.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I mean we're both in the business of helping other entrepreneurs grow their business, and although we approach it in very different ways, I think the sales ick is something that's very real in both of our worlds and experiences. So it's just so good to be able to talk with you about it on this episodes that we're going to do together.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to it. So let's start off
Mm.
by explaining. Actually, let's explain a little bit the direction that we look at things from. So my direction is I'm a sales optimizer. So that means I sort out the processes so that things are much more productive inside of a organization that has a sales department, even if it's just one person. And by that, don't think of prison and things like that. It's more like safety guardrails because the best processes are the ones that are invisible, so that it just keeps you safe. And so that is the direction that I come from things. Whereas Elle, can you explain the direction how you look at things, just that people can
Yeah. Well, I am an entrepreneur trainer for solopreneurs and micro business owners in the online business space, meaning that I help people grow their business through focusing on their personal leadership and mindset development so that they can take action in business on things like marketing and visibility and sales
Yeah.
with clarity and confidence instead of being consumed by overwhelm and confusion and indecision and ick.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I come at it from the internal aspect to be the work that underpins the external aspect. But I don't view one as any more important than the other. They're both important.
Yeah.
But I know certainly from my own experience that I was happy to learn the external work, but I just was riddled with self-doubt and second guessing my every thought and sales ick.
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Telling
yeah.
me. Telling me. So then for us to explain the sales ick, how I've been hearing it is people have had many experiences where they've been speaking to coaches or whatever it is, and they felt like as if they've been coerced into buying something. And so, therefore, when they are selling, if they're not used to selling, they feel like as if they're trying to push somebody down a road, particularly because that's how lots of sales scripts or sales processes for entrepreneurs and business owners are marketed. It's about just funnel them down in one direction. It's force, force, force. And, we know what that feels like to feel like you've been forced into a situation you haven't really had the chance to think, like railroaded. And so
Mm,
people get the sales ick because they feel like when they're on a sales call that if they do then try to explain what their service offerings are, then they're afraid of it. They get the ick because they feel like as if they're going to be railroading someone. They don't
yeah,
want to do that, you
yeah,
know.
absolutely. 100%. I understand that point of view because I would feel that myself. But I think my ick was kind of more fundamental and
Yeah.
internal to start with because it was about putting myself out there in front of somebody. And when your business is very personal to you and it's something that's, very close to your heart that you are explaining, I think that really heightens the pressure around the fear of rejection.
Yeah.
Because that then because it can feel so wrapped up in yourself, and you can feel that you're, it's embarrassing to be knocked back. It's a wee bit like um, having to ask someone out or something. Back in the day, you're like, oh, I'll be so embarrassed if they knock me back and everybody knows about it. And I think we're so programmed in a lot of ways through our conditioning to, well, A, not want to be knocked back in any way, but also to not blow our own trumpet and say, well, I have this thing that can help you and it's great. And, I think that feels very foreign to a lot of us. When you're used to, say, being in employment and you have set things that you need to do and people are sort of telling you what to do. And so you've got a very clear measure of what you're doing well and what you're not doing well. And then you're suddenly in this situation where it's all resting on the conversation you have, or it feels like it's all resting on the conversation that you have with somebody, the success or otherwise. And especially, I think, going back to what you were saying, if you are using scripts or trying to follow somebody else's method, we get stuck in this, well, are we doing it right? Have I hit the right notes or handled
Yeah.
the objections properly? And it makes it more of a thing than it really than I would say
Yes.
that it really needs to be. Because I think when we can clear away some of that debris of the fear of rejection or the is this good enough? Am I worthy of asking for money directly from somebody? I mean, I think the money piece brings its
Mm.
own flavor to the whole idea of sales. Do you know what I mean? And so if it's to me, it's managing these internal feelings. That's the ick for me, is the internal, the way
Yeah.
it makes you feel internally. And I just think there's a whole host of things just coming from traditional employment, the way our minds operate, the way our conditioning operates, that just can trip us up if we don't um, work
And
through it from that
And do you
perspective.
know what that brought up in my mind as well? Because obviously, with the whole rejection thing, it's like it's people aren't rejecting you, but it feels like as if they're rejecting you, and that's one of the reasons why it feels so deep. But one
Mm,
of the things that I know I experienced personally is that I'm a very, very justice-driven person, very value-driven person. And so I can only really work in organizations that I support what we're selling and I support what we're about. Where I don't, I try to change it. It's just
mm,
it's a thing. It's not something that I can really stop. And so what I found really difficult about working for myself was that when you're working for an organization, it's so very clear that the thing that you're selling or the thing that you're supporting, regardless of where you are in that business, is a different entity. It's an entity outside of you.
mhm, mhm,
You can
mhm,
literally
mhm,
see it. Whereas when you're working for yourself, again, everything that you were saying is so wrapped up in it because it's something that's come from you.
mhm, mhm,
Your
mhm.
professional baby.
Yeah,
But,
for
you
sure.
know,
100%. Yeah, yeah. And
it's difficult for you to just because I feel like I almost had like a shield or armor because if I did get a no it would be like that stings, but it didn't feel like as if it was hurting me. It didn't feel like it was a rejection of me because it
mhm,
was about the
mhm,
company. So then I could look at it much more from a macro perspective of going, okay, so why didn't this work? Because there
mhm,
was
mhm,
just
mhm.
less emotional tension with it.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting, I mean, that is one of the things that I talk about a lot, is this separation of yourself from your business and taking that sort of leadership CEO perspective as opposed to seeing yourself and your business as just one thing. But I think what's interesting, or what's sort of occurring to me so far, is everything that we've talked about that we don't feel comfortable with sales is actually nothing to do with sales. It's
Mean it.
all the stuff that we're putting around it, the need
Yeah.
to do it a certain way that somebody else has told us about, or the feeling that we might be rejected, or the feeling that we're not, it's that what we're providing isn't good enough to ask for the money for, or whatever.
Mm.
That doesn't have anything to do with the actual act of providing a service or a product for
Yeah.
sale. it's just everything that we put around it. And
Yeah, the
I
casing
find that
basically.
interesting, that we shy away from sales as an activity or say we're not good at selling particularly. That's
Mm.
the one that we internalize the feeling of I can't do this, I'm not good enough to do this, I can't do sales, where we're actually the things that are tripping us up have actually got nothing to do with the actual mechanics. I have a thing. Do you need this thing? Yes or no?
Mm.
Okay. you know.
Yeah. And
Um,
And so I have a question for you then. So,
mhm,
I feel like some people might be able to look at this situation and just say, well, is it not just a lack of confidence? And I think it's so much more nuanced than that, you know,
mhm,
because again, how does one truly explain confidence anyway? And you can have confidence in one situation and not in another. I feel
mhm,
like
mhm.
the casing that sales is wrapped in, you can be very, very confident in what your services are. But again, it's still that very pivotal moment in time that the perspectives and viewpoints and societal expectations and things like that all just ram into that specific point in time, and it can just stop people. So people end up
Yeah,
having their sales calls and not selling in them.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think confidence is an interesting one because I think we use it as a very umbrella term for quite a lot of um, different feelings, or
Mm.
you know, um, but yeah, absolutely. It kind of can coalesce if we're putting pressure on a particular activity to yield a particular result.
Yeah.
And I think the just naturally the business process funnels us towards a sales activity, whether, because we go through the marketing, the visibility, the promotion, and then there's an action from that. And that if and naturally, because businesses need sales, we need to
Mm.
earn money from it. So it's kind of like that's the bit where the pressure coalesces, I guess.
Yeah.
And so the my perspective is, when I come at it from the sort of personal leadership mindset side, is that the work is not in the sales activity. What
Mm.
the work is in how you feel about the sales activity and manage your approach to the sales activity and manage how you act.
Mm.
Uh, and that doesn't matter whether that's then on a call or in DMs or whatever process suits your business. It's working on how you feel about taking the action that's important
Mm.
in order for you to be able to take the action itself.
Yeah. So
That
can you
makes
give me
sense.
some examples of like how people behave when they are misaligned with sales, or misaligned is probably the wrong word, when they do have ill-fitting casing around sales in their
Yes.
mind.
When they have the sales ick. I mean, if we talk about what method of sales would you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about a sales call?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, a sales call. So I think that would be dreading having it,
Mm-hmm.
worrying about what that they're going to say on it, thinking they need a script
Mm-hmm.
to follow rather than just actually having a conversation with the person in front of them. I mean, we've been joking. I before the podcast, I like my scripts and my notes, and I like to have a bit of preparation going. But having a sales conversation is one that I actually prefer to just speak
Yeah.
without preparation, because it's more about listening. And
Yes.
you know um so I think, yeah, it's the dread, it's the sweating, it's the um feeling that you need to say absolutely the right things to overcome objections,
Mm-hmm.
um or else you're not doing your job properly as a salesperson. It's the is this really good enough? Does the person really want it? Um, what are they going to think of what I'm charging? Are they going to think I'm greedy? Are they going to be aghast
Yeah.
that I've got the audacity to
And
ask
angry at
for
you.
money for this? Yeah. Are they going to say no? Am I going to feel terrible? It's all the um, none of us want to feel terrible, so we will go to length to avoid that. And sometimes that the only length we can actually go to is to not do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and um, and that's where we can get in our own way. business and stop the very result that we're trying to achieve.
Exactly. And it can be so deep rooted as well, because
Oh,
I
yes.
think it can feed into procrastination, in
Mm-hmm.
the sense of, if you know that you've got all of those feelings that you just expressed, like you're dreading it, then what are the chances are that you're going to actually put out the link for people to book for the sales call?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
you won't even necessarily realize, oh, I'm not going to post about this thing because that means people will call me. It's not even necessarily a conscious thought, but you will
Yeah, yeah,
find 55 other things to do other than put out the post that actively says, hey, I've got this thing. Do you want to call me?
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
because your brain is trying to protect you from what it senses as attack.
yeah, for sure, 100%. But, and also from a practical standpoint as well, I think we've all heard the stats about how many times somebody needs to see something before it gets through all the information that is available. And it's very, I think, as well at odds, because even if we do put out the link, if we
Mm.
do it once, twice, three times, that feels like enough. That feels like when we talk about not really wanting to blow our own trumpet, or
Mhm.
appear to be um
Self-promoting.
yeah, we feel that one, two, three times is actually enough and quite a lot, and we've reached the limit. And then somebody says, well, actually, no, I've never heard anything about this. Or, you read something that says people need, is it a dozen times at least now or something?
It probably is these days with social
Yeah.
media.
And, the thought of actually going on and on and on and on and on about something for a dozen times feels counterintuitive, I think, to, you
Do,
know,
do
sorry.
you know what? I think, again, something that you just said has just sparked up there. I
Mhm.
think that's where that tension is as well, in that, you get told to figure out who your ideal client is and speak to them like you're just speaking to them. So
Mhm.
speak to one
Mhm.
person. Don't try to speak to 1,000 people, because you end up speaking to no one. So if in your mind you're trying to speak to this one person, and then you message them about something every single day, it feels like as if you're pestering people. You're
Mhm.
pestering this one
Mhm.
person.
Mhm.
Whereas
Mhm.
the reality is they haven't seen it. You haven't sent it directly to their phone. Even if you sent it by email and it does go directly to their phone, they might not have read it. Even if they have opened it, they might not have read it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I think
Mm.
it's, it's very logical, I think, all the ways that we can talk about countering the sales ick in terms of, well, think about somebody whose product you really like. Do you catch absolutely everything they do? No. Do
Mm.
you feel bothered when you see something from them? Well, no. You tend to like to sort of keep a general weather eye on what's going on, keep abreast of it, and all that's very logical. But it doesn't. It's about how it makes you feel, I think.
Yeah.
And um, for me, I mean, in my personal experience, I got tripped up even before the sales. Like, it was the visibility and the promotion tripped me
Mm.
up. Never mind before you even, before you even get there. And that was, on the basis of um, generally being quite a private person,
Mm.
uh, and also um, not wanting to stand out and put my head above the parapet. And, so I think, um, yeah, I mean, that's it comes back to, that's why I do what I do, because of all the internal gunk that can
Just,
accumulate around the mechanisms of the external
yeah.
business activities.
And here we are both with podcasts. But I certainly know what it's like. I've had the same thing, because we see what happens online sometimes when people just get dogpiled on and things like that, because there's trolls everywhere. There's that. And so that just adds to the fear. And, you don't want to be seen as somebody that's money grabbing. But then also,
Mm,
it's just like the
mhm.
people that would just want to take things from you for free forever, they were never going to buy from you anyway. You don't need to speak to those people. The people that
Yeah.
get angry because you're not, basically, this isn't a charity and you won't just help them for free. Just like, yeah, no, I can't. I like food. I want to be able to buy those things.
And I think there's there's so many things that take on a life of their own. I mean, undeniably, people yes, they do get trolled. And undeniably, it's like watching the news, I guess, undeniably in the world, terrible things happen.
Mm.
And so it tends to cloud our perception of the whole. And so, we forget that there is beauty in the world too, because we're hearing so much about the bad things that happen. And so I think, as humans, we have this tendency to try to, because we want to avoid the danger, obviously. That's, we're wired to avoid the danger. So we tend to focus on the, well, will I get trolled? The undeniably things that do happen to some
Will I get
people.
my words wrong?
Yeah.
Mm.
But I think, I mean, I have my personal experience is that I have met so many wonderful people in the online space
Mm.
and have been met with nothing, sort of nothing but people supporting each other and collaborations like this one, meeting other women who are trying to do the same thing. And my personal belief is that the people who are trying to do something are not going to be the people who tear you down because they know what it takes. It's like that. Is it Teddy Roosevelt, the man in the arena quote that about
I don't know, but I know the quote. I know the quote.
yeah,
Please.
I think it's yeah, and so I think where was I going with that one? Yeah, I think it was just really about, we have the fears based on certain information, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's actually going to have any relation to the reality that we
Yeah.
experience, and yet we're prioritizing that fear.
Yeah. And also with the quote, I think well, I think this might have been the quote you were going for because I don't know who it's by, and I've probably heard different iterations of it, but it's like never take advice, never take criticism from somebody you wouldn't take advice from. So in the same way that like the trolls that you can get online and things like that, are they actually in the arena?
Yeah, it's that sort of ballpark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Are
mean,
you
yeah,
doing the work to be able to come at me and say, If you're not doing the work, then you're just spouting. If anything, that might have even been Brene Brown.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think she, yeah, I think that was something that she talked about as well, definitely. But
mm,
yeah, so in terms of the sales ick, and I suppose it's taking a look at, well, what is this preventing me from achieving, and what weight am I giving to that's causing the pressure around this activity? Um, because that is going to um, because that is going to certainly influence your behavior in the sales activity, the actual external sales activity. Um, and we're coming at it from completely different perspectives, but we are certainly agreed it's a thing and it
oh yeah.
happens and it's very real, and it happens to. I mean, it's a sweeping statement to say it happens to all of us, but
Mm.
I would say it's something we're all familiar with.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so this has been a fantastic understanding and explanation of what the sales ick is and what it feels like and how it can hinder us. And so for our next episode, we'll be talking about how to basically overcome that. How do we reframe it so that we can release it and, use all of the energy that we're spending being fearful about this stuff onto things that would actually support ourselves, our understanding of ourselves, our confidence, and our businesses. So, thank you.
Thank you for having me. I would love to have that second part of that conversation
Yes.
because yeah,
Yeah.
it's so important to be able to recognize where it's coming from, the things that are holding you back, so that you can take the action that your business needs you to take. Because the bottom line for me, and I'm sure for you as well, as people who want to help other entrepreneurs in the online space achieve their business growth, is that we want you to get what you want from your business. Is
Yes.
that yeah, that's the bottom line.
I
So
like it.
what can
So,
we what can we say that will help that?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, folks listening to this and watching this, please join us there will be a round two where we're going to be going into how do we actually get rid of this and sort stuff out. So thank you, folks.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And we'll be speaking to you soon.
Cheers. Bye bye.